Throughout the 2000s, a massive wave of horror remakes came out. Movie remakes have been a staple for Hollywood movies for years, but in the 2000s they really came out in massive piles. Usually with remakes there is a gap of roughly 30 years before the remake comes out. So throughout the 2000s, loads of remakes from movies from the 70s and earlier came out. One of the biggest ones was of course the remake of Halloween. We've now seen remakes of all the big slasher franchises. I think when done well, remakes can be good. When they take a plot from a horror movie and update it for a modern audience, they can sometimes pull it off. In my opinion, the remake of Halloween is one of the best remakes in the past 20 years. The film was directed by Rob Zombie. I think to really like this movie, you have to be a fan of Rob Zombie's movies. I didn't really like House of a Thousand Corpses, but loved The Devil's Rejects and Lords of Salem. The film definitely feels like a Rob Zombie movie with its crude dialogue, excessive gore, and of course his cast of Rob Zombie regulars. For that reason, the look and feel of the movie is nothing like the original Halloween. In fact, the movie is surprisingly very different. The film can basically be split into two different movies. The first half of the movie is pretty much all about Michael Myers' backstory, what made him evil, and of course his gradual transformation from innocent young boy to monstrous serial killer. And then the second half of the movie is basically the plot of the original movie. He goes after Laurie Strode, kills her friends, and then is supposedly killed. I personally think that the first hour is much more interesting. Before watching the film, I thought that delving into Michael's backstory was a terrible idea. I mean, look at what happened with Curse of Michael Myers. But luckily they actually make his backstory feel real. The things that happen are things that could actually happen in real life. The film takes a much bigger step towards reality and in turn makes the film actually quite scary. The gritty, realistic style and look of the movie completely splits the movie apart from the original. Before making the film, Rob Zombie actually asked John Carpenter if he was okay with him making it since the two are actually friends. John Carpenter essentially said yes as long as he makes it his own and doesn't make a completely shot-for-shot remake. Luckily, Rob Zombie did make it his own and it's just as dark and deranged as all of his other movies. As I said earlier, Rob Zombie's regular cast are in the movie. It's pretty cool to see them since they're all great actors. People such as his wife Sherry Moon Zombie, Bill Moseley, Ken Foree, Sid Haig and others are all in the movie and it really makes the film feel like a Rob Zombie film. Of course, since this is a remake, I have to compare the two movies. Let's start with the new actors who fill the old characters' shoes. For the most part, they do a really good job. All the characters are vastly different to the characters that they were in the original movie. The teenage girls are much more realistic and act like normal teenage girls do. Scout Taylor Compton, who plays Laurie Strode, does a really good job of recreating the character. She doesn't have the innocence and shy personality that Laurie had in the original. Although she doesn't top the original Laurie, she still does a good job. Out of all of the new actors who are playing older roles, my absolute favourites have to be Dr. Loomis and Sheriff Brackett, who are played in this film by Malcolm McDowell and Brad Dourif. Both of them really do fantastic jobs of changing the character and neither of them are anything like the character from the original movie. I mean, come on, it's Brad Dourif. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you'll know how much I love him. Malcolm McDowell is probably the most logical choice for Dr. Loomis. Donald Pleasance was a British actor and so is Malcolm McDowell. I'm glad they actually got a British actor to play the role since the accent is actually kind of a part of the personality of the character. In this film, Dr. Loomis is using the story of Michael Myers to essentially benefit himself. He wrote a book all about him to essentially give himself notoriety. However, when Michael escapes, he turns into the character from the original. I also love the fact you get to see him really try to help Michael instead of simply trying to kill him like Dr. Loomis did in the original. The new actor who plays Michael is fantastic, and I'm talking about child Michael and adult Michael. Both of them are really good. The child Michael manages to balance innocence with evil really well, and adult Michael is surprisingly creepy at times. Although he is of course much faster than Michael was in the original, but he doesn't run after his victims like Jason did in the Friday the 13th remake. Danielle Harris plays Annie in this film. For those who don't know, Danielle Harris played Jamie Lloyd in Halloween 4 and 5. It's really cool to see her here, and it just proves that the filmmakers really were making a film for the fans. The film isn't perfect though. There are some big big flaws. The two halves of the movies feel way too much like two different movies. They don't blend together very well and it feels a little bit rough. Although I love the backstory of Michael, I think this part of the movie went on a bit too long. We don't actually see Laurie Strode until an hour into the 2-hour movie. The music cues are also a bit random. Pretty much all of the soundtrack is awesome. I mean, a soundtrack that has both Rush and The Misfits is a pretty good soundtrack in my eyes. However, some of the songs come in randomly. For example, there is a scene where Michael is sitting on his porch. We cut to and forth from Michael to his mother who works at a strip club. Meanwhile, the song Love Hurts by Nazareth plays. I mean, it comes out of nowhere and doesn't fit the scene whatsoever. But the rest of the soundtrack is awesome. With this film, they had a wide opportunity to really delve into the roots of Michael's evil, which they do, but I think making Michael come from a dysfunctional family isn't a very good explanation as for why he is evil. But apart from those flaws, I am personally a big fan of this movie. I like how Rob Zombie really made it his own and didn't just simply rehash the same movie as before with more jump scares and gore. Of course, there are loads more jump scares and gore, but there is much more to the movie than that. It does have some creepy moments and a lot of the film is a loving homage to the original. You can tell it was made by a fan. As soon as I heard Mr. Sandman, I knew this film was going to be special. I knew it was really special when I heard Don't Fear the Reaper, and when some of the original scores started playing, I knew that this was a great remake. The film also technically blends parts of Halloween 2 in there as well. Laurie Strode is Michael's sister. I liked that aspect and Rob Zombie actually made it fit into the movie really well instead of just a random plot twist that was obviously pulled out of thin air. Rob Zombie's remake of Halloween is a gritty, dirty, violent movie. It's very different to the original and feels entirely like a Rob Zombie movie. If you've never seen this film, I'd say you should probably go watch The Devil's Rejects first, which is Rob Zombie's best movie in my opinion. If you like it, definitely check this movie out, otherwise you'll probably hate it. I give Rob Zombie's Halloween a 9 out of 10.